But we're going to be going over a lot of different kinds of techniques and tips and tricks on how to work with oil pastels. So I'm going to try and focus on sort of like a sliver of the image. And I have kind of one that's a little further along underneath the table here, so I can grab that and show you kind of how to finish things. But I'm going to actually take the image and place it off to the side. Now to prepare for me actually drawing this, I got, and actually if we go to that overhead camera, I can show you guys the top of this pad here, just so I can just kind of open it up here. This is our SoHo oil pastel pad. This is 140-pound paper, so it's nice and thick, similar to watercolor paper. And then it's a 14 by 18, and actually you can see I have tape all around the edges because I did tape off the size of the image that I wanted to work on. I, yes, did print my image to the exact size, so I don't have to, when I'm going back and forth between looking at the image and looking at what I'm drawing, I don't have to even worry about sizing up or down or anything like that. I just have to go a 1-to-1 ratio and then kind of go from there. But because I'm working in an extra soft oil pastel, they don't really give me crispy edges, so I like to tape off the image space that I'm working in because that way I can just get as messy as I need to. The rest of my pad is covered and has tape kind of protecting it, and then at the end of the day I can just pull off the tape and then have a nice crispy edge, and then everything is ready to go. And then as far as the sketch of the image, if you guys just use like a pencil to sketch your image in, that's always great. You can also sketch in the oil pastels. That's also a possibility. For me, I actually did just trace my image down. I end up using the, what is it called? Jack Richardson transfer paper. That's honestly, of all the transfer papers, I think that one's my favorite because the lines are super dark. Whereas Sorrel has a graphite that's like a light gray, and that gives me a little bit of a lighter mark, but for the camera to be able to pick up this image, I want it to be darker. So if you don't like how dark this is, that's okay. You can use something that's a little bit lighter. And yes, I did transfer. I just traced it down, and also I can draw this image if I wanted to. That's why I use tracing as a tool, not a crutch. Always want to make sure you are still practicing your drawing techniques. Now, if you are struggling and you're frustrated with getting your image down and having those ratios correct, yes, you can use tracing and then kind of get there and then work on your actual application of the material like oil pastel. Sometimes we just need a win and we need to get that image proportions down without having to be frustrated later on. So that's my 2 cents about tracing. With the oil pastel, now that I have the whole thing kind of blocked off and my edges are protected, I am going to actually work top to bottom. I am also a right-handed person, so I'm also going to kind of try and work from left down to sort of the right-hand side. That's usually when it comes to an image like this. The reason why is because oil pastels never technically dry. So if I start working right here and then I move up, now my hand is now sitting in that oil pastel that I just drew, and I have the ability to smear it still. So if I just work from here and kind of work my way down, I'm just constantly moving away from what I've already done. So a little bit of a trick if you are having some issues with smudging, you can also place a piece of paper under your hand to kind of protect what you've already done. So all of that, we're going to jump straight into the sky. I have a couple different blues here. This is the set of 72, and I grabbed the set of 72 because it is the largest set available, and I want the most color options when it comes to oil pastels. Same thing with even dry pastels. That way you're not having to mix as much, but we are going to have to do some mixtures in here because when it comes to this image, like this beautiful teal that goes from blue to teal to like almost like this yellow ochre kind of color, that does not exist in this set. It doesn't exist in any of those sets, so I have to make it. So we're going to end up mixing some of our colors, but for now we're going to just stick with this bright blue. Now if you are also interested in anything that I'm doing here and have a question about the process, Make sure you pop your questions in the chats. I have my amazing moderators, Amanda and Jillian, in there, whether you're on whatever platform you're in, and they can always ask your questions while we're live. Now, when it comes to just laying down the color of kind of like the sky or whatever I'm working on, I'm trying to be aware of where my clouds are going to be, and kind of how dark and the color and everything that I'm working with, because I'm going to also get kind of lighter as it goes down to that horizon, but it is still blue, but a lighter blue. And yes, that is very, very messy. That's okay. It's not a big deal. I'm also going to just take some lighter blue, kind of layer it in. Again, I'm not being very precious. I can always adjust this later on and just kind of lighten that while I'm drawing it. And I'm not being super precise with my clouds either, but this is where I can also take my finger and kind of smudge it. Now, I know not everybody loves the feel of oil pastels, or maybe you're working with something that's a little bit more toxic and you don't want to have it on your hand. That is okay. You can absolutely wear gloves. That is a great option. For me, I usually just get my hands dirty, which is hilarious because I'm usually not a very dirty painter. I'm hyper clean usually. But if you are interested in having other tools available for blending and things like that, we have these, excuse me, which is the FX Effects. I always have a hard time saying that. These are called the color shifters. They are like a silicone nub at the top, which there are all the different types of shapes and things. So no matter what you're blending, it's a really great tool to have. I'm just going to be using my finger today. Now I got a nice bright blue. It's still not as light as I want it down at the bottom of the sky there. So I'm going to keep going down and stepping down from there to get a brighter color, but I can't use pure white. Reason why is because the tops of that mountain has pure white in it. Now I also don't even need to go pure white with those. I can even go like maybe like a nice peach or something, and I'll show you that in a second. But I need something that is absolutely different to differentiate those two. So, and what I do when it comes to kind of blending my oil pastels together is that I get really heavy on one side with the first color and kind of start getting a lighter touch as I go down. So as you saw, it was really heavy up here, and then as I started drawing it down, I was lifting the pressure from my hand. So that way the pressure from on the bottom side of that is lighter. And I'm going to do the reverse with this lighter color, so as I go up, it's heavy down at the bottom, and I lighten that pressure with my hand. So it's kind of just almost skipping across the surface. Now you can lean into the texture that it makes, or you can blend it out, whatever works for you. You can also blend with a paper towel. That's also an option. Now if you find that like just by going back and forth, you're getting these weird almost streaks where it looks like texture and you want something a little bit more smooth, start changing the direction in which you're blending your finger or whatever tool you're using, because then that way it will be less of like a side-to-side motion and more of like a mixing, almost like you're mixing with a paintbrush kind of a thing. Now we're going to get to the clouds. I'm going to actually keep using that same light blue and sort of chunk it on a little bit, because it kind of, the clouds doesn't have to be perfect. I'm trying to get the essence of it, not a perfect copy. But do we have a question?
Yeah, Gigi on Facebook was wondering if you can blend with turpentine.
Turpentine might actually remove everything. Turpentine is a pretty harsh solvent, and I wouldn't recommend that, and the reason why is because it will break down the oils in your oil pastel so quickly, because this is not the same kind of an oil that is found inside oil paint. It is a different oil. This will never cure and dry, whereas like oil paint will harden to a film. Now this can get like tacky and sort of create a film over time, but for the most part, this does not dry. So it's a different oil altogether, but this oil will still be broken down by turpentine. And then on top of that, your paper might get some damage from that as well. It's such a harsh solvent that I wouldn't recommend it. Now, you could use something along the lines of oil. Oil is a great blender for an oil pastel. But if you do use oil, I would probably recommend you use like a drying oil, like what's found in oil paint. It might be a more fluid consistency, but it should still move the oil paint or the oil pastel around. But these are really soft. I don't know how well that is coming across here, but these are so soft that it's like lipstick. Like, you really don't need a whole lot to blend these. You honestly shouldn't even need any kind of a solvent, but you know, depending on what you're doing and your techniques that you're trying to get, there's a solvent and technique and tool for everybody. We're all different and we all work in different ways. So I think that's about where the clouds are. I'm kind of just sort of blocking them in. And this is the only time I'm going to actually do the whole image across the whole thing. Because like I said, this is such a large image. I feel like I'm not going to get to all of it. I'm going to try and kind of focus on this section because I think this area has the most variety of the image. And then we can jump into like the rocks and things later on. But now with the clouds, I am going to blend some, but not all, because clouds are weird and they have some hard edges and some soft edges, and it's usually a weird mix of both. So try and just get a little variety in there. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to take my white now and just add a little bit of highlights just to pull out a little bit here and there. Right. Just to give some variety of what's happening up there, you know? A little bit of a more dense cloud area where the light's hitting it. So we have our sky. Now, if you don't have this exact blue, that's okay. You know, blue sky will still come across as blue sky. But this blue, if you look at the image, is a vastly different blue from here. This is like almost like a royal purpley kind of blue, where this one I would say almost leans more green. Now in the water, you can see that that blue of the mountains is reflected in the water, and then all of this is reflected here, and then it starts transitioning into totally different colors. So that's what I'm going to also use and keep in mind. The blue that I use for that sky, I'm going to try and pull into this section, and then the blue that I use for the mountain, I'm going to also keep here so that there's that consistency. So let's go with a nice dark blue. And I'm going to add a little touch at the top of the mountains here, here and there. And you know what? I take that back before I get too far. I'm going to actually take my white, nice and clean, so it doesn't have any of that blue from the sky contaminating it. And I'm going to actually do the chunks of the snow now. And the reason why I'm doing that right now is because of the way that oil pastels work when it comes to sgraffito. Because I am going to be utilizing a sgraffito technique in this. Whatever goes down first is going to be what you can scratch to. So with this, if I scratch that paper with my tools later on, that will go blue. If I put this dark blue down and then put white on top, and then I try to scratch through, that dark blue is going to come through it. And I'll show you more of that down here in the water, which is really, really fun. But that's why I'm going to pop in the white now, because if I need to, I can pull them back out. And I can get really quite detailed with these mountains just by scratching back into the surface. So just kind of sort of popping in some of those little areas and just keeping it. It doesn't really matter all that much because I'm just trying to get that layer down. And then because this is such a soft pastel, it's going to go straight on top of that white so easily that it's really not that hard to put pastel on top of the pastel. But I do have some areas where the mountaintop is kind of defined with almost like a little bit of a dark blue area, and that'll definitely help me keep that change from sky to mountain, is that almost illustrative hard line. And I'm going to pop this in, and I forgot already that I'm going to try and keep within this little section here. So gonna pop that over, and then I'm going to actually just kind of scribble in this dark blue. Not being precious about it, we're just trying to lay down some color, right? And I'm trying not to go over where that the green kind of trees are, because that is definitely a different color altogether. And I'll show you kind of how to bring those together as well, to where they don't feel super disconnected. Because I have feelings about, you know, pictures of mountains that look like chunks of color laid on top of each other. If you do it very graphically, it's very well done and it's very satisfying. But sometimes it just looks very disconnected and it doesn't quite flow from one to the other. And I'm just honestly, at this point, also, I did just change the blue that I grabbed. This is just a different color blue. It's a little bit more leaning towards the greens compared to what I just had in my hand. But I'm just trying to give a couple varieties of blue. That way it's not just one color. And there are some blues like this color that almost appears black, but this is a dark blue. And this color I know I'm going to have kind of repeated throughout my image. And that I'm going to actually use to almost give that the Blue Mountain Range some definition as far as like value changes and some differentiation between just having like smack blue, that's it. Because this all has form to it. Now, you can really see the difference between that blue there and there. And actually, I wonder if we go to that side camera, is this any more visible? Because I know it's pulled back to kind of see everything. There we go. I feel like you guys can see this a little bit better. Let's make sure this is in focus. Yeah. So you can see the difference between all the different types of blues here. Just to kind of give myself some variety. And then I'm going to also take this darker blue and pop in the shadows I'm seeing for my trees. So like I know if I'm squinting, this is really dark. It gets dark down here. There's some darkness here. So I'm going to kind of pop that through just to kind of notate where the dark colors and kind of feel of that is. And then I'm going to start addressing this little chunk here that's right in front. Now, as you can see, there is... You have a question?
No, we're having some sound issues.
Oh no.
It's not quite synced.
Yeah.
Oh no.
20 seconds and no talking. We're going to try to reset it real quick. Okay.
All right, how are we doing now? Does my mouth match up with my words? Do you guys want to go to the front camera to see if this is actually... Okay, all right. Okay. Well,
for a second, so.
yeah. I do appreciate everyone bearing with us when we have some technical difficulties like that. The cameras do what the cameras want to do. Now we're going to deal with this kind of little sliver of tree, kind of mountain range area that has... I can see the green of the trees as opposed to like all of them kind of blending into like a blue mountain. But I can also see a lot of that like ground and dirt and everything that's in between the trees. So I'm going to actually lay down the like gonna say just the dirt first, but I'm gonna lay down the dirt first. So it's gonna actually be like this warm gray, because when we were at Lake Tahoe, it was, you know, summer, but there's definitely a lot of snow in the ground because such a high elevation, it's gonna happen. And so I'm going to just pop it in there wherever I see it. Don't see all of it through all the trees, but that's enough. Then we're gonna take this nice olivey green. Make sure you guys can see that color. It's a nice olive green. And we are going to pop that on top of everything. Almost like a blanket of green. And I'm not being super precious about it. I'm also covering that blue that I already have down there. I'm not covering all of the like warm gray that I had going on, because there's like little trees. If you want to try and like keep your, I almost said brush stroke, but the way that you're actually applying this, if you want to keep it kind of going vertical, that'll kind of give you like an indication of like foliage, because trees grow up, not sideways. So if you make your marks go vertical like that, that might actually do wonders in keeping that understandable as a tree. And almost like pointillism, I'm just kind of dotting it on here and there. It's not perfect, but it's there. Okay. Then I do have a slightly lighter, more olivey green too. And then that'll kind of give me a little bit of change in the value, to where anywhere where that hits this little green area, it'll look like light is hitting the trees. And I don't need a ton. Then I do have, this is a really dark green that almost looks black. Even if I actually hold it up, it's gonna look black. This is actually a dark, dark green as well. So if I pop that in here and there, just gives me some variety. Just a little change. And then now I have to figure out how to make this green flow into that blue. And the way that I do that is I can do one of two things. I can take the greens and I can pull them into that blue, or I can take the blues and pull them into the greens. I'm gonna actually take the greens and pull them back a little bit. And that's a really, really, really dark green. So I'm gonna take a little bit of the lighter ones as well and kind of pop them through just a little here and there, just to give it a slight indication that that's actually trees going back in space. We have a question?
Yeah, Nola was wondering if there's a limit to how many layers you can put down.
I really don't think so. I mean, it's gonna get to the point where like you're mushing oil pastels on top of oil pastels, but you can always shift that back and forth. And if you're finding that you're having a really hard time getting more down, that's where these come into play, and these are really, really fun. These are actually pottery tools. These are just different kind of clay sculpting tools that I have in the teacher's cart. This one's my absolute favorite. That little sharp point. Also, it has that flat edge where if I wanted to scrape some, I can. But this is the sgraffito technique that kind of helps me pull my colors back down to that base layer. So if I start scratching in, instead of adding pastel, I'm now taking it away. And I am now, it's still gonna give me that variety of color, but it gives me a little bit more detail without having to add more on. But again, this is why we have to try and be aware of what we put down first, because if I start scratching into that and it goes not the lighter gray color that I wanted it to, you might scratch down to like a green, and it wouldn't feel like you're scratching down to like the dirt layer, like the dirt layer that you can see through the trees. Instead, it would look like just a different variety of green. Because here you can see, actually let's go to that side camera because this might be really, really well, a really easy way of seeing this. Right here and right here, I have that blue down where I had that first. And if I scratch down, I have to find it. There it is. If I scratch down to that and get down to blue, you see that little bit of blue kind of peeking through? It's just a little bit and a little hint. Now, I can actually take this tool, and because this is oil pastel and there's quite a lot on there, I can actually start to squish this around instead of scratching completely down into it. And I can get a couple different varieties of almost like color mixing, almost like I'm mixing with a palette knife. So I can adjust and push and pull my oil pastels with just this tool and give myself a couple different fun marks to give me variety in the image. Now, all of this is way far off in the distance. I'm gonna kind of scrape that back down here. Way far out. That's why a lot of this turns blue, because, you know, it's, as you recede in the distance, everything kind of goes a little bit more blue. That's the way that the light is refracted, words. The way that light is refracted and the way that it kind of bends as it starts traveling around the globe, it kind of just tends to go more blue. And then I have this other blue that's kind of coming in here too, which is really fun. Gives me a little variety. But then anything that I scrape off that's still left on my tool, I can still also just like apply it if I wanted to, almost like I'm palette knife painting. Just like that. Gives me a couple varieties. Okay, now I also still need a little bit of variety here in the mountain. I want some purples because like there's some lighter areas back here that also go on top of that snow. Gives me a little bit of variety. Alright. And then, you know what? I'm going to even go with a peachy kind of color. I know, crazy. But I think if I actually layer this really lightly on top of that purple, it'll give me just a little bit of a variety that still looks naturalistic. It just kind of gives me something different, you know? And you can't tell me that that doesn't still look like mountains, you know? Now, if I wanted to go back and define that snowy area that was in here, I can scratch back in. Scrape and scratch, all in one word. And then I can kind of get my white highlights back. Now, you can see I actually had that blue of the sky right here, so I cannot scratch back down to white. That blue was already there, so I actually am going to have to put that white back in. But now, if I take a little bit of that and remove it, I can probably get myself a variety. Now, if I wanted to, I could also go back in and define the edge of my mountain, just like that, and give myself a sharper edge. This is a wonderful tool. So, I'm going to say, that's my mountains in the background, done. Now, remember I have that reflecting in the water here, so I'm going to use the same blue that's in my mountains and kind of just give myself a layer. And we're going to just try and keep this here, because then all of this is more or less sky that kind of reflects up. And the sky, I used this crazy blue. It's a lot different from the other one. And I have all these little lines indicating shadows in the water. Didn't really have to get that detailed. Really didn't. That's okay. Now, what's great is that I can start having a lot of variety of blues that are in my water here. And you notice that I'm going back and forth side to side because all of the water is flowing, the like little waves. If you go side to side like that, it flows that way a lot more. It doesn't go up and down. If you're scratching up and down like that, it's going to feel not like water. So keep your application side to side. And we're just gonna kind of just scribble on a variety of blues. Just, if this feels like the right color blue, grab it. And if it doesn't feel like the right color, like if you add it and you're like, that's wrong, grab something different. Yeah, that feels right. So I'm gonna add, these are like little highlights. Now, again, if I wanted to, I can scratch back in with my tool. But because I had that blue down first, it's gonna give me a blue as the base that I'm scratching back down to, but it's gonna be lighter than the blue, the darker blue that's on there. But this is a really fun texture technique for water. Now, I do recommend every time you are scratching like this, you are gonna start getting, the only way I can describe it is like little pastel boogers. I try to get those off just because if they get stuck, like this dark blue gets stuck down here, or vice versa, now it's gonna be really hard to pick back up. And it might not be the color that you want in that spot. So just as like a precaution, I have a paper towel in my hand and I just kind of wipe it off and then go on from there. Now again, I can also take my finger and give some variety that way. Now if I don't blend everything, that is also okay, just like I did with the sky. You can maybe have some little water technique scribbles that you have here and there, and if you want to blend it out just a little, just to kind of give yourself a little bit of variety. And I'm constantly moving that side to side and back to back. Now, I am going to start bringing a little bit of this like purple blue down, because in my image, that's a perfect color for all those like little ripples that are kind of the shadows almost of the big areas of the waves that are kind of crashing down. But I still have to add more of this color down, and now I'm gonna have to start actually going around rocks and getting closer and closer to where all of that color change is going to happen, right? Now also, is anybody out there playing along? I'm curious if anybody else is painting with me. If you also try this in the future, I would love to see what you create. So if you get a chance to post it on any social media, I would love to see your artwork, please. It makes me so happy to see what you guys make. But just make sure you do tag us at JerrysArtarama in any social media. All right, so I realized after I did all that blending, my highlights got a little lost. This is that beauty of like, you can keep adding. If you decide that it's too much, you can just touch it with your finger and kind of blend it back down a little bit, and then kind of bring it back, blend it back a little bit. But the second I start touching it and moving it around and smearing it, I'm kind of bringing down the intensity of whatever it is that I just did. So it kind of softens it almost a bit. Right. To give it a variety. Now I also almost forgot there's a little sliver of sand in the back, and I'm going to actually use this beautiful like khaki color. You have a question?
Yeah, we had some concerns about using your finger to blend with these.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any pigments we should be worried about in the SoHo?
Not in this set, no. This is a good set to, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this. This set is fine. If you are concerned with any other oil pastel set that you have that you're working with, you can always make sure that you check the label on the box, check the website and see if it has a CL label on the packaging. Here, this just happens to be right in front of me. I thought this one had one. That's okay. Not every packaging has it on there, but the ones with the pigments should. Oh, here we go. Is that, here, can I grab that one? Sorry. I just don't want to flip this upside down because then I'll get pastels everywhere. Okay, so this does not have it. That is the packaging label. So it should say AP or CL on it. I believe this one does not have it on there, but this one should be if it doesn't have a CL logo on there, can you grab me a paint or something that has CL, just so I can show them the toxic kind of label. If it has something toxic in there, it is required to have that label on there. So that is for safety. If you see that on there, that's one of those like things that is like, hold on, something in this might not be great for you. These packages don't have it on there because they're not toxic. If you are at all worried, you can always just protect yourself, use gloves, use tools. That is okay. So like if I were to take this and blend my pastels, that's the same thing. I have to also be aware of that edge that's on there. I might actually, here we go. I use almost like a little like deer foot tool just to blend everything. This works really well too. I'm just more of a tactile, put my hands in my oil pastels kind of person. So that's for me. But if you don't want to touch them, that is okay. You do not have to. But that is a really great question. I'm glad you guys asked, because we do need to be aware and protecting ourselves as far as art supplies are concerned. Because sometimes, you know, we are working with materials that has some toxic things in there, and it doesn't mean that you have to avoid it altogether entirely. You just have to be respectful of what it is and make sure that you're protecting yourself. Whether, you know, you don't get things on your hands, on your skin. Make sure that it's not going airborne. Try not to breathe in any art supplies. That's a big just rule of thumb for me. I don't care if it's toxic or not. Just anything dust wise, I try not to have anything breathable. But as long as you are protecting yourself and aware of what's in your art supplies, you should be good. So now I'm going to also start transitioning from, so it goes from like this royally purpley blue down to that like bright, almost green blue, cyan kind of color that reflects the sky. And then it goes back to that purpley, but then it starts having these rocks that's starting to come into view, which are wonderful. So I'm going to start going, and you see how I have a couple of different blues, right? These are both kind of in that purpley range, whereas like this was the color of my sky. So like this is like way more of a cyan kind of blue-green, whereas like these lean more purple. It's just in relation to each other, right? But these two, because they're both purpley, this one's a lighter version of that. So now I can have some variety in my values. So I had this lighter one for my waves. And I will always do that too. So now I have blue where it doesn't belong. That's okay. That's the beauty of this, is that I can always cover it up with oil pastels. So I'm just trying to blend it out a little bit. Now I'm going to take that darker blue and just give a little bit of definition in my waves as well. And try and kind of go around the rocks that I have in there. If I'm not perfectly going around rocks, like you can see I got blue on this right here, it's fine. It's not a huge deal. But we're going to start doing that transition now. So I'm taking this dark blue and popping it in, like the darker of the two, and popping it in where I see essentially shadows around the rocks. And I'm going to pop that little shadow in there. And then I'm going to go from general waves kind of a shape. And I'm still going back and forth. But now my mark making is going to start turning and going in a couple of different directions. I'm going to go around this rock too, because that gets really dark right in there. And again, if I get the blue in the wrong spot, not a big deal. It's okay. I can cover it up, I can scrape it off, I can go back. This is a really forgiving medium. Right. Alright, so I am not still officially away from this like bright kind of cyan blue either. this one, they're kind of mixing at this point. So, and there's definitely some on top of that rock, because the rock is fully submerged in water. So what we're seeing is the color of the rock through this crazy blue water, because this is a lake that is like rock on the bottom instead of having like sand on the bottom, which is why it's so clear and so pretty. It's mountain fed too, so it was ice cold, which is really fun. Now I'm going to give myself, I'm barely holding on to this pastel, and I'm going to give myself a very light coating of that blue right where that rock is, right? And then I'm going to take some of these purples and give myself a little bit of variety of where these rocks are starting to come into focus. Now I also have this beautiful color. This is like a purple brown gray. It is such a weird color and I love it so much. I used it so much in this image when I was drawing it originally. Now I'm just popping in a little bit here and there. Just a light little touch. And sometimes when I am applying it, I am actually scraping off the blue on to the pastel. And that's why, again, I can have a paper towel nearby and just kind of wipe it off, and it comes right off. We don't have anything with like cadmium in it that would have that.
We did, but all the paint tubes we have are the tiny ones that don't have enough room for it, so they just have like skull and crossbones or the warning. They don't have the symbol on it. I
Is
can't find
there?
the symbol on it.
That's wild.
Yeah, we even looked at like lead weight and like.
This is, I swear, it's like, it's one of those things where like whenever you're looking for something, you cannot find it.
It's on a million products.
It's on a million things.
I just can't find one.
Yeah, they're still trying to find that CL label, so you guys can have a visual of what that looks like. But it's, again, it's one of those things that when you're looking for it. The what?
We can pull it off the website.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to do that?
If you can, all right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually have them post a picture of it in the comments here. I don't know if they can do that on. Can they do that on YouTube? Can you post an image on YouTube?
That's right. We can't do
I don't
that.
know if I can do that on Facebook.
Oh.
It's a good question.
All right. Well,
They're still looking.
I know it's here, I know
We're gonna
it's
try
here.
and find something.
We've
Trying
got
to.
so many safe alternatives in the studio that like.
Yeah, we really try to make sure everything in the studio is nice and safe for us to use all the time. So like, apparently we're really having a hard time trying to find one. Because I feel like oil paint would be the fastest one to find.
But the tubes are so small, it's not on the tubes.
I wonder if there's a larger tube of like the Lucas.
That's what I'm looking for.
Katie's on it. She'll find it. Okay, so I'm just kind of blending a little bit with like tools, and again, if you want to, you can, that's stuck. If you wanted to use your finger, you can, just because I know this is safe. But I'm just trying to base layer, essentially, right? And so I can kind of remember what I've done here, and then kind of layer a little bit more blue if I want to kind of push it. Oh, there we go. We found
I
one.
found one at the same time too.
Of course. So this is pigment. This is a pigment. Actually, yeah, we might have to. Oh wait, here we go. I can put it here. This is a pigment by Old Holland. That right there. That right there with a CL means stop. There is something in this material that could be hazardous to your health, and you do want to make sure that you are taking precautions. This is a powdered pigment, so I want to make sure that I'm not breathing this in, I'm not getting it on my skin, anything along those lines. Now, what is in that jar is always going to depend on the product and the material. You know, like, you don't want to get turpentine on your skin because that is a solvent that is toxic and has carcinogens that are, it's not good to get on your skin. That pigment specifically you don't want to breathe in, like different things for different materials. So with oil pastels, if you happen to see one that has that label on there, take the precautions, put gloves on, use tools to blend, don't use your fingers. I know this set right here is safe. So, in case anybody is wondering. Sorry, I appreciate you all staying with us on that endeavor. That was an endeavor. And bravo to the team for finding.
I've never been on Supermarket Sweep, but I can imagine now.
Amanda pulling the Supermarket Sweep reference here. Okay, so I also just have this really, really light blue as well that I'm going to start using just to pop in a little bit of highlights. Now, I have these waves back here that, just like I did with my clouds, I'm going to blend them but not over blend them. I still want some of that texture, but I don't want it super forward because it's still pretty far back in space. And so what I also really want more of are highlights on this water because it's starting to get to the point where the light is just sparkling off of those little tiny waves that you're going to start seeing come into focus as we get closer and closer. And again, I'm going to push some of them back and then I'm going to keep some of them kind of forward. And all I'm doing is I'm holding this really loosely and just letting it drag on the surface, and the surface texture of the paper plus the way that the pastel kind of skips over that is going to give you absolutely beautiful little like almost sparkly water highlights, if that's the best way I can describe it. You have a question?
Yes, on YouTube, we were wondering if oil pastels are considered a fine art medium, or is it more just for like studies and sketches and things like that?
Why isn't oil pastel a fine art medium? Why would it not? I'm doing fine art with it right now. That is entirely up to you on whether or not you want to do fine art with oil pastels. Yes, it can be. It can also be great for color studies. It can also be great for all kinds of things. Mixed media, experimental. This is a really versatile medium that is able to do quite a lot. So yes, it can be fine art, and it can also be a hobbyist and kind of something that you're just squishing it around in a sketchbook to experiment with. So all of the above. Great question though, I will say. Okay, so now I'm getting to the point where I'm going to start doing that transition into this really fun color. Holy cannoli, it's already 6:23. How did the time fly? I'm going to show you how to do some of that color mix right here. And then I want to show you specifically down here where I was doing the highlights. Now for the highlights, I'm going to go ahead and do this right now. I am putting white down where I know I want pure white highlights. Time flies when this is going on, I swear. So I'm gonna have a little bit more up here. Again, the only reason why I'm doing this is because when I sgraffito back down through this surface, I want to be able to get to pure white. I also don't need a ton of it. I just need a layer on that right there. Okay, so now I'm going to do this crazy, I'm gonna go for the aqua kind of color because you can see how I'm starting to pull those purples and the browns through for the water. I would continue that down, and right here where this sort of aqua color kind of pops in with this rock that's really forward, that's the color that we just don't have in this set. So I'm gonna start showing you how to layer and get that color without having it in, available to you. So I have, yes, a crazy, crazy green, a crazy, crazy blue. Blue plus green equals a fun color. I'm just gonna kind of blend it. Again, you can use tools, you can use your fingers, as long as it's safe. And then I'm gonna start slowly tweaking it here and slowly pulling it more and more into that like aqua kind of color. Now that is too dark and I need to kind of calm it down a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is take kind of an opposite color that is also a lot lighter. So I'm brightening the value and I'm also desaturating it quite a bit. And then I can also take a little bit of white. I'm being really light with this. And then I'm starting to just slowly but surely change my colors, and nothing is ever one color. This is all a variety of colors, right? Now when it comes to my highlights, and this is still not quite the right color for me, and I would still just keep kind of tweaking it with like little shadows here and there. And if that shadow is too bold, I'd knock it down a little bit with my finger or a blending tool. And then I can start getting these really fun, almost squiggly lines. And that is really, really fun for, actually, let me grab almost like an orangey. If I want to start getting like weird little highlights, because we're going to start seeing as this comes forward, all of those reflections of the water is going to go through. We're seeing the rock underneath the water, but we're also seeing the reflections of that water through onto the surface of the rock. Now, because I put that white down right here, I can now scrape really fun little highlights. I'm gonna have my paper towel near me. And I am literally just scribbling, but it looks like water. Little reflections of water bits. Now anywhere where I didn't actually put pure white down, it's gonna go kind of more of that green blue color that I had. And I'm gonna go back and forth and start adjusting slowly but surely. And just kind of, if I see purples, I'll add purples, but I'll try to make sure I also pay attention to like the values. And so I'll start getting a variety of little marks and transitioning from that dark blue down into that. Now as I start going from there to more of the orangey kind of yellow ochre, again, I will do the same thing where I'm going to start kind of popping in like almost like a mass tone of the color of the image. This whole thing is like this crazy yellow ochre kind of color. And then you can go through with different varieties of browns to give some subtle changes. You can get a little bit lighter when it comes forward. You can even go kind of a crazy yellowy kind of color for like the little highlights. And slowly and surely, but like layering and layering and layering. And then we can go, before we get too far, we can also scrape back some of this texture. And we can also get a lot of the little like light lines that kind of come in and reflect on it. Make sure that's in focus here. It's hard to like paint as quickly as possible with oil pastels while also trying to do it on camera here. Now I just did this and I really don't like it, so like I'm gonna scratch a big area, give it a really nice bright highlight. But here is where you can see this had pure white on it, this did not. So you can see how much brighter this highlight is from here, and I've scraped down all the way down to the paper that I could. So that is the sgraffito technique that will get you all those really bright highlights and kind of going from one to the other. Now, also, I'm gonna go and layer some of this fun blue, and that will also get me that transition from all of those oranges into more of this aqua kind of color. Just slowly bringing one into the other. Like that. Now, I did want to quickly go over rocks, and I'm going to movie magic. Hey! Now this, of course, took me a lot longer because I took my time to really render all the different things. But I wanted to go over this rock real quick and kind of show you how I got there. And so I have that beautiful brown purple kind of color in this set, and I'm going to give it kind of a light layer all around. Again, if it's not the exact right color, that's okay. I can always get there and layer and change it. This actually goes quite yellowy on the top here. And it has a lot of like cracks and little craggly bits that are coming through. I have a couple other rocks that are missing here too. Pop that in. But this is where I'm going to start using that gray and pulling out highlights, but they're not saturated. And also this kind of goes around here. Actually, we did start a little bit later, so I have a little bit more time, don't I? Okay. This is the panic part where I see the clock and it's getting late, so I'm like, oh no. All right, now a little bit of a lighter gray. Again, slowly layering my colors. And you can see I actually did quite a lot of layers here. And a lot of it was doing exactly what I did with the water, where I did light, kind of almost a side to side, almost like glazing, but not blending all of it in, which I feel like you can probably see this a little bit better here. Let me actually get that aqua color off of here before I get that onto my rock. Cross-contamination. That is one thing you really do need to be aware of. Now, I'm also now struggling because like I want to put my hand down and I can't. There's no way I'm going to be able to put my hand down because I'm going to smear everything I did. So now I'm having to like put my hand down as a brace and rest my arm on top of it and draw like that where I have stability. But try not to do this because it is not a joy to do. But we've all been there. Oh, let me actually pull this down a little bit further so you guys can really see what I'm doing. All right, now as this rock goes into the water, it has this really bright kind of color to it that almost appears white, like almost a pure white. And then it goes to this like crazy darker brown, like a banding. And that's what I tried to really get across here, is that you have like almost like different chunks of rock. It is almost a super hard line, but with pastel, or the oil pastel, you're gonna have a hard time getting those kind of details sometimes. And again, it's okay if you don't get an exact perfect harsh line, but if that's something that you're interested in, start using your tools like this. That way you can kind of carve back into it, adjust those lines, that kind of a thing. Now I know we are getting close to the end of the show, because the whole thing flew by. It's wild. Do we have any questions?
I have two.
Yes.
One,
shoot.
Do these oil pastels develop a skin that you have to remove?
No.
And number two, how do you seal them at the end?
I'm so glad you asked. That is a great question. When it comes to sealing your artwork, and actually let's go back to that overhead camera because then I can show you guys a very, very satisfying peel here. The first thing I do is I will take the tape off. When it comes to removing the tape from your paper, try to pull from a sort of an inner corner. Try not to hit the edge of your paper by pulling it straight up. You want to pull it sort of off to the side like this. You want to be very careful when you're working with those edges. Once you get to about here, you're kind of okay because we're pulling away from the edge. And I am essentially folding this flat against the surface that I'm pulling away from, and I'm holding my arm down onto the edge of this so I'm really supported and I'm really stable, because this is where we can absolutely ruin our art by tearing the paper. Granted, if that happens, don't cry. Maybe cry a little, but don't freak out too much, because we can always mat this. We can hide tears on the edge of the paper. It's not the end of the world. Ideally, we don't have to deal with that, but sometimes it happens, you know? But that's why I do like this tape. This is the Artist Pro tape that is white. I believe I have this in the teacher's cart too. It's got a pH neutral acidity to the adhesive, so I'm not introducing anything bad to my paper. But it's also one that I've had really high levels of success at peeling the paper off, or the tape off my paper. I'm trying to peel this without getting my head in the camera. So I have a beautiful crispy edge, which makes me so happy. And if it still doesn't get nice and super crisp, that's again okay, I can mat this. But before I officially mat this, and I'm gonna actually not peel off the other sides because I have a little bit of rock left. I can't leave it like this. It needs to be finished. But what I will do is spray fix this once I have all the tape off, and I can take this outside, of course, or somewhere where you have ventilation and you are not going to be breathing it directly into your lungs. A spray varnish. You are going to have to use a spray varnish because anything brush varnish wise that if you put on here, you run the risk of smearing your artwork. Because even this, I did this a while ago. I am still getting blue coming up off of that. And this is a nice thin layer on the sky. I haven't touched this in a really long time. It does feel a lot more stable than the one that I just had on there. Like, it's not coming off as much as if I had just freshly applied it. So it's a little bit more settled in there, but it is always going to still have that ability to smear. And anytime you take a brush and you apply that to that surface, you are now going to move everything around, and it's going to just absolutely destroy all of that work that you just did. So always spray varnish anything that will move when a brush touches it. So this, you're going to need to spray varnish. I'm pretty sure I did pop a spray varnish into the teacher's cart. I think the one that I used was a UV protectant, which I always recommend just because we want to make sure that our colors in our artwork, no matter what we're using, is protected from sunshine rays kind of damaging them. But then on top of that, it's, I want to say the satin is in there. There's also gloss, there's also matte. The actual finish that you use is entirely up to you and your own personal preference. So you can use, I always like satin because I like a little bit of gloss, but I don't like it super glossy, but that's just me. If you like a high gloss, go for a high gloss. That's cool. But if you also like matte, we have options. That's what we love. But if we do have any more questions, now is a really great time to ask them. I am just going to quickly go through this image here so you guys can see. So down here, you can see that I have all of that sgraffito. So all of that water, it's just scribbles. That's all it is. And a lot of layers. So like you can see all my shadows are the blues and purples. I added the like yellow ochres with that like red kind of brown color. And then all of the really, really dark areas here. I did actually have to darken it with black. I am one of those artists that I never ever reach for the black in any kind of my art set here. I did reach for it here, and I had to reach for it here because I needed something dark but not saturated. So that is where having that understanding of color theory is really great. But I have to finish this image, so I will be doing that eventually. So, but that was Lake Tahoe and oil pastels. I hope you guys learned a lot about oil pastel techniques, and give this image a go, whether or not you're actually working in oil pastels or not. I've actually painted this in watercolors too, so love this image, highly recommend. And it is now available in our Jerry's Live Facebook group if you are interested in using it. So, highly recommend. But that was the show, guys. I will, of course, we'll be back next week. I will actually not be back, sorry. Michaela will be back. And she's actually going to be using How Many Brush Strokes, a mark making challenge that she is talking about, which is really, really interesting. And I am very, very excited. So again, if you are interested in anything that we are using here on the show, make sure you go to the website, JerrysArtarama.com, and type in today's class code, of course, as well, which is JL388. I'm sorry? Oh. we did have. I didn't know if you wanted to say the surprise. But yes, we're gonna have a guest artist. Maud is gonna be cough, cough, hit, hit. So make sure you also tune in next week because we have somebody very near and dear to our heart that is gonna be here, and we are so excited. So that was the show, guys. I appreciate you so much, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.